Hey everyone, it's Jasmine. I'm here from Blogging Money Life, and I am super excited to talk to you guys tonight. For those of you who this may be your first time coming to one of my Q&As, what I do here is I talk blogging, I answer your questions you may have about blogging, and I usually tell a story too. And I'm super excited about the topic I'm going over today. But before we get into all of that, I always like to start by just giving a quick introduction about myself. So, like I said, I'm Jasmine. Hi. I've been blogging for a little over a decade. I have a blog called Miss Millennium Magazine, and I have a blog that is newish called Blogging Money Life. What I started Blogging Money Life with my husband, Chris, and we like to talk about how to make money blogging, as well as other blogging tips that are super helpful. We also talk a little bit about our lifestyle as bloggers, tips that we've learned, but also what it's like to move from the United States to a different country. Chris and I currently live in Costa Rica, and we share a little bit of information about both topics. So, yeah, what I like about this is my time to really just nerd out on blog information. So, if you have questions about blogging, go ahead and post them in the comments. I'm happy to answer them. And if it's relevant to the topic today, even better. If it's not, that's cool too. I'm here to get those questions answered for you. Now, let's talk about the topic. So, as I mentioned, I always have a theme or a topic that I like to talk about in these Q&As because I feel like there's a lot of time to ask me questions, but it can be hard to come up with what questions do I have. So I found that telling stories about my experience when it comes to blogging really helps get that going as far as any questions that you may have and you just haven't thought about, or just an opportunity for you to learn from one person's experience. So today I want to talk about um, something that a lot of bloggers go through once they reach a certain point, and that is hiring help. So, for a lot of people, that is getting your first virtual assistant. Questions that may surround this is what type of um, what type of duties can this person do, or how much should I be paying a virtual assistant? Where do I go to find a virtual assistant? And so many other questions. And I think the best way for me to kind of guide that conversation is to tell you guys about what my experience has been like. So, quick overview, I have hired probably well over 50 different virtual assistants at one point, between my blog and then other blogs or jobs that I've managed. I've used a few different kind of tools to do this, and I've hired people from all over the world, from the Philippines to um, I think I had someone in Germany before, uh, and just some other countries. And I've done it all on a computer, with smaller or larger budgets. And there is a lot that goes into hiring so many people. I can tell you that right now. I've learned a lot. And today I'm going to share what I've learned with you. So, before I jump in and get into more of that with you guys, I would love to know who is here with me. So, if you are here and you're watching live, feel free to post a comment. Let me know who you are, where in the world are you, and if you have any questions about blogging, feel free to share those too. I'll be answering questions related to blogging as they come in. So go ahead and post those questions there. And I'll be coming in periodically to check the chat as well to see if there are any new questions coming in. So while I wait for those, I want to talk a little bit about my journey. So when I first thought about hiring a virtual assistant, I was at a point where I thought, okay, I have so much work I have to do for my blog. Um, I cannot even imagine passing this off to someone because my blog is my baby. I don't want to hand it off to someone and they're going to screw it up, especially when I've worked so hard to put together a nice process to be consistent and everything. So I was going back and forth with the idea of hiring a virtual assistant long before I actually hired one, because I had to get past that mental part where how do I trust someone? Especially, how do I trust someone who probably lives on the other side of the world with something that's so precious to me? Um, and I think where I really got to a point um, where I finally became okay with hiring a virtual assistant is when I had a task that was so mundane to me. I got tired of doing it, and it was taking up an absurd amount of time for me. For me, that task was applying for sponsor post opportunities. I reached a point where I was making between 5 and 10K a month with sponsor opportunities. And I did this from applying on different sponsor post networks, pitching brands, um, as well as just following up and seeing who was interested in doing sponsor posts with me. Now, I knew this method works because I was making money with it, but it took up so much time. I was spending at least 4 hours a day pitching brands. And for those of you who have a blog, you probably know like there's so much other stuff that you have to do in a day. To dedicate 4 hours every single day to one thing on your blog, um, it's tough. It's tough. It makes it hard for you to grow your blog. It makes it hard for you to just get through some of the basic things you need to do on your blog, like writing content, for example. So I knew something had to change. And what really helped me justify this change outside of not having a whole lot of time is that this task that I was doing was bringing in income. So I knew that if I'm making, for example, $500 a month with this task, I could hire someone for less than $500 a month to do this task for me instead. And I can get my time back and still make some money. Now, would I be making as much money um, as I would if I were doing it myself? No, because some of that money is going to have to go to the virtual assistant. But having that time freed me up so I can look at other ways that I can bring in income, or that I can help grow my blog in general, my traffic, write blog content, stay consistent. So at the end of the day, it made sense for me. Now, if you're considering like, is this a good time for me to hire a virtual assistant? I think you can find yourself in any of those positions that I mentioned that I was in. If you're making money with your blog, for example, and you have some tasks that take up a lot of time, one specifically that already brings in income directly, that's a good sign to hire a virtual assistant and have them help out so that you can move on to some other things. Um, the other thing to think about if it's time to hire a virtual assistant is if you are doing a task that is so mundane that you're actually contemplating quitting your blog because you're just so sick of doing this task. I think that's another time where it's probably okay to think about hiring a virtual assistant, because while even if you're not making money right now with your blog, this task it could be hindering you from actually being able to grow your blog, and it could put your blog at risk because now you're considering quitting because you don't want to do this mundane task. I think that's also an opportunity for you to hire a virtual assistant. Um, so, yeah, if you are in any of those positions, I think it's worthwhile to look at getting some help. Okay. If you guys have any questions when it comes to that or anything related to blogging, go ahead and post in the comments and I will make sure to get an answer for you. I have a message from African Hype, said beautiful. Thanks so much. That's so nice. Um, but yeah, that's my 2 cents for right now. So now that we talked about how to go about, um, I've decided I need to get a virtual assistant. How do I find one? Well, there's a couple of ways you can do that. The first place where I hired a virtual assistant was on a website called Fiverr. And what I'll do is I'll put the link to that in the chat here in case you guys have never heard of it before. Um, this is my affiliate link, FYI. Let me make sure I give you the correct one so you have access to it. Yep, this is it. Okay, so there's a website called Fiverr, and it's called Fiverr because there are a number of things you can get people to do for you for $5. Now, just because it's called Fiverr doesn't mean everything on the site is $5. There's some things that cost hundreds of dollars for a single service, but it's a great way to find help. What's nice about Fiverr is that people have different profiles. You search for whatever you're looking for, and they say, "Hey, I'll do this for X amount of dollars." So let's say I wanted to hire someone to manage my social media for me. Let's say specifically my Facebook account. I want someone to manage my Facebook account. I'll search Facebook and I'll see a number of profiles that shows me people who are interested in managing your Facebook. And they'll have different prices, of course. And they'll have star ratings, which is also great. So you can see people who have experience doing this before. You can look at their portfolios to see what type of accounts have they managed before. And then you can also start a chat with them and say, "Hey, I want to know more about this. Here's a little bit about what my profile is. Does it sound like a project you would do?" If you want to do something slightly different than what they have on their profile, then maybe be willing to consider that as well. So Fiverr is a great place to go. Um, Things that I've had done on Fiverr. I've hired graphic designers to create social media images for me. So that's a really good place to find that. I've hired people to do Facebook advertising for me, which is something that, can be beneficial and also pay you income. So that I think that was a good task for me to hire from there. I've hired copywriters, uh, people who would do pages or designs on my website. I hired people to do help me with product creation. So kind of like in design, but I give them content and then they turn it into a PowerPoint or something like that. So there's so many things that you can hire people on Fiverr to do. I've had people help me with SEO and coming up with ideas for strategy for building my blog. So go ahead, take a look on Fiverr. You can create an account for free. And what's nice once you're in there is you can just browse, see what kind of things people are actually offering. It is a marketplace, so it's a great place to kind of get lost and come up with ideas for ways that you can get help with your blog. All right, so that's one place you can go to get help. Another place you can go to get help is Upwork. Upwork is where I spend a good deal of my time now when it comes to hiring help. And the main reason for that is because a lot of the help that I'm looking for is more long term, is not necessarily something that I want them to do once and then it's over, which is very common for Fiverr. Not to say that it's not, like you can do long term campaigns with people. There's some people I've worked with over and over again just because they did such a good job um, with me in the past. So you can do that on Fiverr, but for Upwork, what makes it a little different is people do have profiles, people do have a rating system, but you post a job on Upwork and then people can actually apply to it. And they'll give you more of like a resume or cover letter, their portfolios, and you can set up calls and interviews with them through Skype or through Zoom on Upwork and talk to them. Say, "Hey, tell me more about yourself. What does this look like for you for this particular role?" It's more like hiring for a job. Now, for me, this was pretty intimidating when I first started. Like, I can't hire someone. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what are all the little things you have to know here and there within the platform to know if it's a good person to hire or not. And I'll talk about that more as far as like what are some of the things you need to be mindful if you're going to hire on Upwork. But I want to just point out those differences. Like there are some more barriers that you have to kind of overcome if you're using a platform like Upwork. Now, Upwork, you have so many things you can choose from in regards to um, things that people can do for your blog. Literally everything. I've hired blog managers, social media people, general virtual assistants. I've hired videographers, everything. any little thing you can do on your blog, they can be found on Upwork. Um, it's just a matter of finding the right one for the right price and seeing their track record to see if they're actually going to be someone you can trust. Okay. Um, I'll talk more about that. I wonder, can I share my screen too? Yes, I can. Um, so I do want to like show you guys a little bit about what it looks like in Upwork and what to expect for um, hiring talent because it can be a little intimidating, all the different things that you can choose from um, when it comes to finding people. So give me 1 second and I'm going to pull it up for you so we can look at Upwork together. All right. So let me share my screen. Doo-doo-doo. All right. Give me one moment, you guys. I'm going to get you all set up. Here we go. Sure. Okay. So I just logged into Upwork so you guys can see what this platform looks like. It's pretty cool. Um, once you're in, you can see I'm on the Discover section and you can see who I've looked at for different projects, new talent based on things that I've looked for before. They're looking at people in Texas since that's the state that I'm in. Um, so, and then it lists out some projects I may be interested in, which is interesting because this is more like how Fiverr operates. So this is a fairly new option here. But this is where it gets interesting when you get down to the category. So you can see different areas that you can hire for, which is pretty darn cool. And then there's more here. If I want to see all the specializations, I can click on here and just take a look. So you see other categories on the left side, and it's just a general search. So I can search by category. I can go by locations. I can say, do I want a freelancer or an agency or both? I can go by hourly rate, job success, earned amount, hours billed, English level, and all these things do make a difference. So let's say I'm looking for a general virtual assistant, right? So what I would do is I will go to maybe admin support. Okay. So executive virtual assistants, let's do that. There we go. So I have a category here. Now, once you decide on your virtual assistant, it's good to know what type of skills do they need to have. So they have some ideas here. Now, if I'm like, this isn't exactly what I was thinking of, I can go back to the categories and figure out which one fits. But if you're not sure which one it should go to, you can just click all categories. I'm going to go with freelancers. I don't typically like work with agencies just because it means that you're not going to have the same person working on your account all the time. Sometimes it's like that. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes that person just works under that agency and they're taking a cut of whatever they're doing. But I typically just go with just freelancers myself. If you're still starting out, you can say, I want to be $10 and below. I always do a 90% and up job success. And this is good because you don't want anyone who has a lot of bad ratings on their profile because you want to work with someone who knows what they're doing, they're trustworthy, and they're going to be that way with you as well. Okay. Let me see. Oh, I have to unlock that, so I'm not going to do that. All right. Amount earned. Now, this is important because do you want someone who's been on Upwork for a while, they know how it works, and they're going to use it properly? Or do you not care if they're new and starting out? Now, if they're new and starting out, there's a possibility that there may be more training involved on your part. So there's that. But if they've earned something, then they've actually done this before. So I'll go with $100 earned. That's someone who's not exactly new, but have, earned something. And if they have a pretty good job success, over 90%, I think we should be good. Um, I don't think earned amount and hours billed, you don't need to have both. So actually, I'll go with any amount earned, and then let's say 100 hours billed. That way we know that they actually have done something within the platform, and then within 6 months only. So they put this because someone can have a great profile but haven't logged in a while. So I'm going to say within the last 6 months, just so we can get rid of the people who just aren't using their accounts anymore. All right. For the English level, this part is important. I go with Fluent because um, when it comes to being able to give instructions to people, you will find that a language barrier can sometimes be a problem. I'll say, hey, I want you to do this thing. They didn't really understand it because they don't, they're not as fluent in English. And then they'll work on a project that uh, you didn't really want them to do. And it's a lot of frustration, I think, on both parts. So I say Fluent. Now, some people may say they're fluent. So another way that I make sure someone is fluent, I require a Zoom video call at least once a week when I'm working with them, just so that they know, like, hey, this is not going to be something where you're typing and you have to know, English just writing it out. That's not to say some people are fluent when it comes to writing, and that's fine. But if I'm going to have conversations and give orders verbally, it's good for them to know to be able to speak fluently in English as well. So that's something I like to choose as well. All right. So now that we put our filters in, uh, we have a nice list of people who fit all of our criteria. So this guy, Mohammed, he is willing to work for $5 an hour. He's in Pakistan. He has 91% job success, which is pretty good. So this is someone I can look into, but it depends on what type of job I want him to do. His specialty seems to be data entry and lead generation, as well as web research. So I'm not really looking for a data entry person. I'm going to keep going. Photo editing, real estate, e-commerce. Okay, so this guy's more creative. He's in Vietnam, and he has a 92% job success. He's also a top rated person here. So that's always a good sign. You see that they're top rated. And you can just keep scrolling through, figure out your budget, right? Like, think about how much money are you willing to spend? Is this a project where you can spend, $50 a week on it? So what's that, like $200 a month for someone to do this task for you? I like to think like that as far as how many hours they need to work on a project and for how long. And let that help you determine how much per hour uh, they need to be paid in order to get through some of these things. So I wanted to show you guys that because Upwork can be a little bit more complicated when it comes to picking someone because there's so many things to think about, right? When it comes to picking someone. But once you find someone that you like, let's go with Ali, for example. He has 100% job success. He's top rated and he's only $3 an hour. Email researcher, lead generation, real estate. I'm interested in someone in lead generation. So let's take a look at his profile. I want to take a look at his profile. I can see his work history. So he's had 59 different jobs. That's awesome. He has really good ratings, very good, lots of positive um, ratings here and reports. If you scroll a little further, you can see their portfolio and see some things that they've done in the past. And you can click on this too to get an idea of like what they've done exactly. You can see their skills, any certifications that they may have, employment history, and then just more about their experiences. So you get a lot of information with Upwork, which is great. And then there's a lot of stuff on the left side here too, as far as him being fluent in English. His ID has been verified. So he is who he says he is, which is great. And he said he's good at data entry and lead generation. I'm interested in lead generation, so I can look at how he has been rated specifically for that. He says that's something he's an expert in. So let's make sure that he actually is an expert in it. And he has 5-star ratings all the way through. Ali would be a good person I would like to talk to see if he could work on a job for me if I'm looking for someone who can do lead generation. So I'm gonna stop sharing now and just go back to my screen here to see if you guys have any questions. I'm not seeing any. Great. So if you do have questions, let me know. I'm happy to give you an answer. But I wanted you to see what that platform looked like because, like I said, there's so many different things that you can choose from when it comes to selecting someone on Upwork. Now, when it comes to hiring someone, that's a completely different story too, because something that you want to be mindful of is, are they actually going to do what you hired them to do? And what I have found is it's good to build a rapport early. I love to do a Skype call with them pretty early and just get to know them a little bit. Tell me about yourself, where you live, how long have you been doing this? What are some of your thoughts on? And Katniss decides to make a debut. So, hello, Katniss, and goodbye, Katniss. um, so yeah, tell me about yourself. Tell me about how you got into this industry. Do you have a family? Like, let's, I want to know more about you. And it's good to know those things too, because you want to know that they're a good fit for the position that you're hiring for, and also like you want to like them too, right? Like, to tell me something interesting about yourself. So it's good to know those things. It's good to have a process. I like to have a written process when it comes to hiring. And the reason for that is because you can tell someone something all day. You can record your video while you're explaining it to them. And it is so easy for things to get lost, even if you are giving them specific training on it. So I like to have this written down step by step. Here's the process when it comes to posting on social media. Here is the process when it comes to posting on our blog, and have that written and hand it to them. And then do training, right? So, go over it, show them things, allow them to ask you questions along the way. Excuse me. And then once they do, give them a small project to work on. So, okay, I did the training. You have the instructions. Here's your first project. I want it to be completed by this time. Let's set up a call after that time so that we can discuss the project. And this is where they typically learn, at least for me. They go through the project. Now that they've actually done it, they may have more questions for you as far as like, okay, what does this mean when I see this thing? It made sense when you were going over it in the video and when I was reading through it, but when I actually executed on it, now this seems a little bit more difficult than what I initially imagined. Or it could be perfectly smooth and they are ready to go on to the next project. So, baby steps. You want to give them a small project, followed by small project, and just kind of gauge their engagement as well as their performance along the way. Now, it's good to make sure you are clear about your expectations. You tell them, this is what I expect of you. This is what I expect of this role. And then, once you are being clear, giving them small projects and giving them deadlines as far as when things are supposed to be done. If those expectations are not being met, it's good to be clear, like, hey, this is what I was expecting and this is what I got instead. So maybe we need to get back on the same page as far as what you are capable of doing and what my expectations are, right? So maybe it could be that my expectations were just too high. It's probably not possible based on the hours that they have to be able to get through all the items that I want them to get through. And that, that has happened to me, and that's perfectly okay. But it is good to pay attention and reassess when that does happen so that you can make sure that this partnership is still successful. Now, sometimes you can have those talks until you're blue in the face and they're just not willing to change or make adjustments to their work to be able to meet that. And in that case, it may be time to look for someone else. I'm telling you, like, I've had to go through a lot of virtual assistants this way, just not being clear, not having similar work styles, or people who just aren't willing to do the work. which is surprising if they take the job, I know. But you will run into that when hiring virtual assistants, especially if you're hiring from all over the world. Um, the reality is, like, if they are never going to meet you in person, for some people, it's hard for them to take you seriously. This is a real job. This is something that I will actually pay you. And that means that you actually have to do work. Um, so that does happen. I don't think virtual work is for everyone. Um, and in those cases, yeah, it's time to move on to the next person. Um, so yes, making sure that you have a process written, making sure that you do a training. I prefer training doing it on Skype and talking face to face so I can see one that you're the person that you say you are actually fluent in English, and also it's just easier to talk through something when there could be a misunderstanding. Like, oh, I read this and this is what I interpret it to be, and then it gives you an opportunity to clarify on those things. So those are the things I think that you should do once you actually hire someone on. Now, let's talk about long-term VAs. We've talked already about hiring someone to do certain tasks for you, which is something you would do typically on a platform like Fiverr. Hiring people who are longer term, for projects that may be longer, or someone that you want to keep for years, maybe, via Upwork, and how to find good help on Upwork. But I think the third thing you want to be mindful of here is finding people who want to continue to work for you. I've had some virtual assistants that I've literally worked with for years, and it's interesting because you build a relationship with them, with someone you never met in person, and get to a good bonding point where you trust them to do your work, they trust you to pay them every month or every 2 weeks. So it's good to get on a good path like that. I like to build rapport if I have a regular meeting with someone, let's say once a week. I say, hey, how was your weekend? Did you do anything fun? That's a good way to kind of build that rapport with people, especially when it comes to um, someone who's managing multiple things for you. I mean, they're a person at the end of at the other side of that screen. So that's something to be mindful of when working with a virtual assistant. Um, Another thing that I do is um, I like to ask them about what their goals are personally. Do you have goals to do something similar to what I've hired you for? Is there anything that I can provide for you so that you can grow in your personal goals or your financial goals or whatever those may be? Um, I'm always a fan of people who are hired, giving them access to resources. I'm a huge fan of courses, as well as just different learning opportunities. I've invited virtual assistants to different, like, online trainings and courses that I've had access to, so they can learn a skill and be better in the role that they're doing. So I open them up to that if they tell me, hey, I'm more interested in learning more about marketing, or I want to learn more about social media. Be mindful of those things, because them developing and growing in a certain realm can help you too. So I'm mindful of that. And then you want to be mindful of the culture too. I've worked with a lot of virtual assistants in the Philippines, just because I'm a lot more used to their culture now, since I've worked with so many of them. I'm aware of their holidays, so I know what days that they're probably going to take off um, for those specific holidays. For example, I'm aware that if you are hiring someone more full time in the Philippines, that they typically expect a year-end bonus. And that's something that you want to be mindful of, because that's going to help with people sticking around longer, if you know that about the country that they're in. And it's just good to ask those questions in general, even if you're not familiar with a specific country. It's good to ask, like, so tell me, what are some of the norms when it comes to working in South Africa, for example? What are your expectations of this role? What are your expectations of me as your manager? And just having those open conversations, because that's a good way to make sure that people are sticking around. It's also good to do a regular update where you're checking in on them and saying, hey, you've been working here for 3 months. Let's talk through your role. What do you enjoy doing? What takes up the most time for you? What are some things that you think we can change around here? Are there other things that you would like to be doing besides what you're currently doing right now? Like, it's just good to have those conversations so that you are continuing to build that rapport and making sure they're happy so that they can stick around. So those are just a few things I will keep in mind when it comes to sticking for people to stick around a little bit longer for a role that you hire them for. All right, I'm going to take a look at questions to see if there are any here. And just a reminder, you guys, you don't have to ask questions specifically about virtual assistants. I know I've been talking about that for a while now. But yeah, anything that's related to blogging, you are, you are welcome to ask. All right. So I'm not seeing anyone in the comments. Um, but yeah, I think that's all I have when it comes to virtual assistants and hiring them. Um, go slow. Trust your gut when it comes to hiring someone new. Treat them fairly, definitely. Do your research when it comes to hiring a virtual assistant. Pick the right one. Take your time, and yeah, don't be afraid to take the step. I've met so many bloggers who are, they're making some income. They're exhausted because they're doing all these tasks they don't want to do. And, they're tasks that can easily be handed off to someone else. So don't be afraid to take that step to hire a VA because it will make a big difference in your life for sure. So yeah, that's what I have. Uh, Thanks for everyone who came by and listened to me talk about virtual assistants. I hope it was helpful. If you have any questions about VAs or hiring your first VA or questions about blogging in general, feel free to go ahead and post them in the comments. I do continue to watch those and answer questions from there if you have them after these calls. But other than that, I think that's all I got. I will see you guys in our next Q&A in April next month. Bye, everyone.